Hey guys, Dr. David Jockers here, and today we're talking about 7 of the most critical benefits of following a food elimination diet. And so we know 21st century health is really all about the life of our gut, what we call our gut microbiome, which is the bacteria, the viruses, the yeast, all the different organisms that make up our gut. And what we're finding is the food that we eat actually feeds the gut, and there's major reactions that take place, such as we can either absorb a ton of nutrients or we can actually cause inflammation, and we can also damage the gut and cause a lot more inflammation. And so we know that following a food elimination diet where we actually take out foods that provoke inflammation can have profound benefits on a number of different conditions. And so scientific research has shown that number one, a food elimination diet, probably the most important thing is it helps to heal and seal a leaky gut. And so leaky gut syndrome, also called intestinal permeability, is basically when the gut lining, there's one cell, right, that separates the intestine, what's inside, the food inside the intestine, from the bloodstream. When that intestine, it's like cheesecloth, it's got little holes that allow nutrients to seep into the bloodstream. When it becomes damaged and kind of rips apart and these gaps become large, when that happens, now food particles, bacteria, all kinds of different proteins then seep into the bloodstream where our immune system has a reaction. And we know that our gut actually houses 70% of our immune response. So the gut itself is responsible for 70% of the immune system. So when we have damage to the gut lining, it increases inflammation throughout the entire body. And so what a food elimination diet does is it takes out the foods that are provoking the most inflammation. And now that improves our body's ability to self-heal. We know that the intestinal layer actually rebuilds every 3 to 5 days. So by removing inflammatory agents, now that gut lining is able to heal and seal over a period of time. That allows us to absorb nutrients better. You know, when we have intestinal permeability, that leaky gut syndrome, we're much more prone to having deficiencies in things like iron, causing anemia. B12 deficiencies are really common. Zinc deficiencies, oftentimes protein malabsorption. So as we get the gut healthier, we're able to absorb those nutrients better. That helps us reduce inflammation and helps us just improve overall whole body wellness. So that's the first big thing, is healing leaky gut syndrome. Second big thing is reducing autoimmunity, and this is absolutely huge. We know that all autoimmune conditions are all related to a leaky gut, meaning that the gut becomes damaged first, and now that increases autoimmune reactions. So autoimmune, basically antibodies to different tissues of our body. So lots of research on this showing how, for example, gluten sensitivity, strong correlation with thyroid antibodies and autoimmune thyroid disorders like Hashimoto's and Graves' hyperthyroidism. And so when individuals with those thyroid disorders, when a lot of studies coming out talking about how when they go on a gluten-free diet, right, a good high-quality gluten-free diet actually reduces thyroid antibodies. They're talking about things like lupus, which is another autoimmune disease. They're talking about that as actually, in a sense, it's actually gluten sensitivity that doesn't affect the gut, but instead there's a certain antibody called TG3, and so this TG3, it's transglutaminase 3. We develop an antibody, and that's in our skin, and so it starts causing inflammation in our skin, can cause a lot of different issues in our body, increasing our risk of lupus. Okay, there was a 1997 study that came out where they showed that 40% of rheumatoid arthritis patients, so individuals that have been suffering and diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, which is an autoimmune disease that affects our joints, cripples our joints, it showed 40% could see significant improvement on an elimination diet for 10 to 21 days. So as little as 2.5 to up to 3 weeks on an elimination diet, they saw significant improvements. I know in my clinic, I saw a woman years ago, and so she came in my office, and her name was Luann, and she came in and she could barely walk from the front to the back. She had such crippling rheumatoid arthritis in her body. 6 months on an elimination diet along with corrective chiropractic care, and she was actually running on the beach, chasing after her grandchild. She told me, she's like, I can't believe it. She's like, it's been 15 years since I've been able to run, and she was able to bend down, play with her granddaughter build sandcastles, chase her on the beach. And so she had freedom by following a similar program like this, a food elimination diet. There was another great study. They took a 50-year-old woman as a case study, took a 50-year-old woman. She had been dealing with ulcerative colitis, an autoimmune disease that affects the gut lining. And so she actually went on this elimination diet, particularly took out things like gluten, dairy, and eggs. She went on this diet for a year, and before that she was dealing with thinness. She couldn't gain weight. She also had issues like she had anemia, so she had really low energy, low white blood cell count. She had bloody stools, so diarrhea, bloody stools, and just overall general apathy. And so after a year, they retested her, they did lab work, they found that her stools were good, no more blood in her stools, no more antibodies to her colon tissue, normalized white blood cells, no more anemia, doing amazing. And so this is the kind of results that we can get through following a specific elimination diet. And if you do it well, you can get those results as well. So third big thing is it improves, and we already talked about the ulcerative colitis, improves gastrointestinal or digestive problems. So there was a study where they took 20 individuals dealing with irritable bowel syndrome. They put them on an elimination diet. All 20 of them found significant improvements as little as 30 days on an elimination diet. So profound benefits there. Also, people that deal with migraines. And so there was a 2013 study where they took 21 individuals that were dealing with migraines. They put them on an elimination diet, and just about all of them, 80%, saw significant improvements by following an elimination diet. So they reduced the severity of the migraines and the frequency. And if you're a migraine sufferer, you know that's a big deal. You get your life back that way. Skin conditions this is another big one. We know people with acne, whether it's teenagers or adults that deal with acne. We know other issues they deal with are typically abdominal bloating. They oftentimes have very low stomach acid. Lots of research on low stomach acid, which is one of the predisposing factors for having food intolerances to begin with. And these individuals also typically deal with constipation. That's really common with people with acne, sometimes diarrhea. And so they also did a study where they took 15 individuals that had eczema, right? It was a study out of Rome. They put them on a food elimination diet. They took out things like nightshade vegetables, tomatoes, potatoes, peppers, things like that. They took out nuts. They took out grains, gluten, dairy, eggs out of their diet. They put them on a specific elimination diet. 14 out of the 15 saw significant improvement with their eczema. Powerful. Okay, then you look at things like food allergies. You know, we're told, gosh, you can never get well if you have a food allergy, like a peanut allergy, things like that. Well, they took individuals that were dealing with what they call esophageal eosinophilitis. And so basically what that means is they have a high IgE reaction, or eosinophils, which are white blood cells, certain type of white blood cells. They would go way up when these individuals, you know, just at random times, because the people didn't really know how to handle it. They didn't know what was provoking it. And it was in their esophagus. So they had this inflammation in their esophagus, which could stop our breathing, right? I mean, that's a significant issue. They also wouldn't be able to get food down. You know, a lot of individuals deal with that where they're unable to get food through their system because they have so much inflammation in their esophagus. And so basically they took these individuals, they put them on a food elimination diet, saw significant improvements. In fact, 70% had their esophagitis, the inflammation in their esophagus, actually went into full remission. So extremely powerful. And then last but not least, learning disorders. We know there's a huge relationship between the gut, so that the health of our intestines, and the health of our brain. And so when we say leaky gut equals leaky brain, meaning that when we damage our gut lining and we create this chronic inflammation, for many of us, those who are susceptible, we're gonna have problems with our brain. And so we know kids with ADHD and kids with autistic spectrum disorders, that they typically have leaky gut and food sensitivities. That's one of the common underlying factors. British research showed that when they put kids with ADHD on a food elimination diet, they showed significant improvements with kids with ADHD. So autistic kids, as well as kids with ADHD, you know, gluten, dairy-free diet, sometimes an even further restrictive diet, taking out things like eggs, nightshade vegetables, can have profound benefits on reducing inflammation, reducing autoimmunity, reducing inflammation, and really allowing our body to overcome these kind of chronic conditions. And that's why, as a clinician myself, I use a food elimination diet with anybody that's dealing with chronic inflammatory conditions. And if that's you, you're dealing with an autoimmune disease or just chronic inflammation that's affecting your body and causing you to suffer with poor quality of life, then you owe it to yourself to research and investigate a food elimination diet. Follow a specific program and protocol so that you can see life-changing results. So that is 7 key benefits of a food elimination diet.